Welcome to the Anxiety Relief Podcast. I'm your host, Rolph, the Anxiety Coach, here to help you conquer anxiety and build a calm, confident life. In each episode, we'll explore the tools, stories, and insights to help you take control of anxiety and live life on your terms. Without further ado, let's get started. Hello, and welcome to the Anxiety Relief Podcast. Great to have you here. My name's Ross, and today I'm going to be keeping this one fairly short, but it's going to be clear and a little bit different from the last, but still super, super valuable. If you've ever had anxiety show up and that immediate thought you've had is, I need this to stop, then you are not alone. But that exact fight can be the same thing that keeps the whole cycle going. So today I want to explain why trying to get rid of anxiety often makes it even louder, and what to do instead in a way that doesn't feel like you're repeating those same steps over and over that you've heard 100 times before. So here's the key idea today. Anxiety is not just a feeling, it's a message your brain sends when it feels something might be wrong. And your brain learns obviously very quickly from your reaction, not your intentions, but from your reaction. So when anxiety shows up and you treat it like a problem that kind of like must be solved immediately, your brain is then going to learn, good spot, this is really urgent. But actually, it doesn't matter that you were actually trying to help yourself. You've actually gone against what you were trying to achieve there. And it's the urgency of it that becomes the lesson to your brain. And once your brain learns urgency, it keeps sending that same message again and again. And that's why people can end up stuck in this pattern where anxiety becomes their main focus and ultimately ends up ruling their life. And that's not because anxiety itself is dangerous, or even the situation that you're anxious about being dangerous, but because your brain has been trained to treat it as if it was. So let me put that into like a simple picture for you. So if every time a warning light flashed up on your dashboard, you slammed on your brakes, pulled over, you panicked, your brain would start treating a warning light in your car as a crisis, right? Even though your car is probably actually fine, like lots of people have had a warning light come on because it's like got a bit hot or you braked a bit hard. It depends on how techie your car is, obviously. But there's lots of reasons why a warning light could come on, but it doesn't necessarily mean there's a problem right there and then. Yes, it could mean that, right? But most of the time not. It might just mean, for example, that your tire pressure is starting to get a bit low, so you might need to get that looked at. Yeah, so just bear that in mind with this one. Now, the difference would be in this scenario is if you had a light come on and you accept that actually your car probably is fine, you just glance at it, you stay steady and you keep driving safely, you teach your brain that this doesn't need a full emergency response. And that's a difference. Yeah, so instead of responding like you're desperately getting somewhere to save someone's life type scenario, instead of that, just be calm and steady. Yeah, just treat it for what it actually is. This is not an emergency. So the real goal there is not that you eliminate anxiety. The real goal is to remove that emergency response to it. And because anxiety cannot stay strong without that second layer, which is like the panic about it, it will lower down. You'll get relief from it by doing that. And the second layer of panic about the anxiety is like where you start scrambling, you're analyzing, the checking, the what ifs. That's a massive one for people. The what if scenarios, the rushing around, all of that is the fuel for anxiety. Now, what does trying to get rid of anxiety actually look like in a day-to-day scenario? You're probably thinking that. Well, it could basically there's lots of things it could look like, but it would look like body checking, or you're monitoring your heart, checking your blood pressure, checking your breathing,
like scanning down, checking your chest, all these sorts of things. You're doing like little tests to be like, do I feel normal now? And that feels like you're trying to stay safe. And it's actually teaching your brain to stay on guard, keeping you alert, keeping you in that fight flight response, which is not what you want. Now, it could look like some kind of reassurance habits as well, right? So it could be that you're Googling symptoms or, any other search engine. It could be that you're searching for certainty. You might be using like AI nowadays. You might be using AI going, oh, if I've got this and this, does that mean I'm gonna die? Does it mean there's something wrong with me? All of that is literally just extra fuel. Watching videos to how to calm down and then saying to someone, do you think I'm okay? Like, and most of the time that person, you're just asking for an opinion, right? Like they can't feel you and like what you feel like in your body. They're unlikely a doctor. It's just extra fuel. And yeah, that might give you relief for like a minute or so, but then your brain is learning, well, next time I feel this again, I've got to do that again. I've got to go and ask that person again. I've got to Google again. I've got to ask AI again. And that just becomes a loop. Now, that can also look like avoidance. And that would be, for example, not going to places that might trigger it. So it might be that you think there's something wrong with your heart. So you don't do any exercise. You don't go anywhere where you'd have to, work yourself up a bit. So there's no exercise. It might be that you're not driving, not being alone. You've always got to have someone with you, not going to bed until you're like completely exhausted. And that avoidance gives relief initially, yeah, but it teaches your brain danger to avoid it. And that fear then grows. Now, here's a different approach I want you to try. Instead of asking yourself, how do I get rid of this? Ask, how do I stop adding urgency to this? Now, that one small shift, now it might sound really small, but it will make a massive difference for you. Because you can't always control whether the anxiety actually appears, right? But you can control whether you turn it into an emergency. And this is a really good starting point. So here's a practical plan. When anxiety hits, you do three things. You slow down your behavior. So if you're rushing around, etc., just slow it all down. Slow it all down. Loosen your grip if you're driving. Loosen your grip on it, right? And then you return to the next normal thing. So I'm just going to explain this in a bit more detail here because you're probably now in your mind coming up with all these different scenarios and thinking, oh, would that apply to this? So the first step, slow down your behavior. So this is because anxiety makes you rush. It makes you feel like you must do something right now. So you deliberately then do the opposite. That's what we're trying to achieve here. We do the opposite to doing something right now. So you move slower. You speak slower. You take your time. Not because slow movement fixes anxiety, but because slow movement tells your brain we're not in danger. Because think of that, right? If you suddenly had a lion or something get out of a zoo and was running towards you to attack you, if you run, which you would, your body is obviously going to know you're in danger and run and move quick. It's going to be chucking the adrenaline into you to move really quickly. Whereas if you were moving all slow like a sloth, it would be thinking that you're absolutely fine about this situation. Now, obviously, you're never going to do that with a lion, but let's be realistic here. Most things in life that your anxiety shows up for are not dangerous anywhere near this. Yeah, they're not actual dangers. They're things that are perceived as being danger in your mind. So we just change that. We slow it down. So the second step, the second thing you do is when you loosen your grip. So this is where, because most people tense up and brace as if something's about to hit them, right? Now, this could be like you might be holding your breath, you might clench your jaw. Like that's a really prominent one that I've always had is I clench my jaw, and I have to become really aware of that. It might be that you tense your shoulders or you lock in your stomach. So instead of that, you do a simple release. You drop your shoulders, You unclench your jaw, and that might mean that you've got to put, you literally push your tongue down into the lower part of your jaw to ensure you're doing it right. You let your belly soften a bit. And that's not trying to force relaxation, right? But you're just trying to remove that bracing yourself. Yeah. So you're trying to take that away, because when you brace yourself for something, it's like an impending doom, and you're saying to your brain, something is coming. Whereas the releasing tells the brain, we can handle this. We're going to be okay. And then that third step is where you return to the next normal thing. And this is the most important part. You keep living. You don't need to conquer anxiety first. You need to actually move through this. You don't need to wait until you feel calm. And that's another point where people go wrong. They wait, they go, oh, yeah, I'll do that when I feel better. No, it's doing this that will help you get the relief, that will help you feel better. You just do the next normal action. And I've said this before, but if you were wanting a cup of tea or about to make a cup of tea, you keep making it. If you were walking, you keep walking. If you were working, you keep doing that next small task. If you were in a conversation, stay in it. Don't run away. If you're in bed, just rest instead of sleeping. Yeah, just close your eyes and just rest. But don't turn it into a battle. This is how your brain learns that anxiety can be present without you needing control of it. And that lesson is what turns anxiety down over time, turns it right down. So instead of it being on that 10, 11, you bring it right down. Now, I want to give you a line that you can use to repeat in the moment that fits this approach, probably the best, I'd say. So try this. I'm not solving this. I'm showing my brain it's safe. I can feel this and carry on. And that's it. And if you're listening to that, obviously, ideally, write it down and use that, but you don't have to use all of that. Put it into your own words, whatever works for you. I'm staying because I'm safe. I know I can carry on. As long as it's along them lines, it will work, but it's got to be calming to you. And you will notice the difference that makes, because you're not then arguing with your thoughts. You're not trying to convince yourself. It's a focus on your behavior. Yeah. And the words are almost like a prompt to make sure that you do the 3 steps we've gone through and slow yourself down. And yeah, so that's the point of it. And it's that behavior that you do when you do that will retrain your nervous system. And now you might still think, yeah, but what if it keeps rising? But if it keeps rising, you still do the same thing. You keep removing the urgency. You keep loosening that bracing yourself, right? You keep returning to normal actions. And if you have a spike where you need a quick reset, you can do the physiological sigh, which I've taught in other episodes. You can do one of them, right? If you really need that quick reset, which is one big inhale through your nose and then a small extra one. So you do to top it up. Yeah. And then one long, slow exhale through your mouth. So that's the physiological sigh. So you can do that once or twice if you really need it, but don't do it as a ritual, right? It's not a magic trick, but it really does work. Just as a quick way that will essentially take the edge off the adrenaline. And then you can keep responding as we've gone through in this episode. And the goal is not to breathe your way out of anxiety, right? The goal is to stop treating the anxiety like a problem that must be fixed right now. So here's the takeaway. The thing that keeps anxiety alive is not anxiety itself. It's the emergency response you've been trained into doing when it shows up. But you can retrain that response by slowing your behavior, loosening your grip, and returning to the next normal thing. If you want a quick reminder for this week, it's this: less urgency, more normal. That's your practice. If this episode helped, share it with someone who is still stuck fighting anxiety. We don't want to be fighting it. We learn to live with it and lower it. Thank you for everyone who's been listening to the podcast so far. It's going from strength to strength every week, and that is all down to every single one of you. So please continue to share it with anyone you feel will be of benefit to it. Please remember to be following it or subscribing to it on whatever platform you're listening to, and please give it a rating, which does help with it, the algorithms. We're pushing it out to more people, and I hope that has helped bring you some more relief from your anxiety. Remember to follow so you don't miss the next one, and I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you for tuning in to the Anxiety Relief Podcast. I hope today's episode left you feeling a little more calm, confident, and in control. Remember, small steps every day can lead to a big transformation in your life. If you found this episode helpful, please don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who you think might benefit. For more tools and resources, head over to my website at www.rossrolph.com. And don't forget to join the Anxiety Relief Hub on Facebook, which is a supportive community where you can connect, share, and grow. Until next time.